after we read what Keith had written, we jumped on a Zoom together, and Keith told us a story about, and it's actually the opening of the movie, and it's about the first fatality that he had on the job, and he was not even 18, or maybe just turned 18 at the time, and and how then the next day he went back into work, and they said, last night was rough. Does anybody want to talk about it? And there was some sort of silence. And then they said, coffee and donuts are in the back. And that just stuck with me so much. It was such a powerful story. And I think, you know, the second I heard that, it turned from a documentary about everything they go through to a documentary about the lack of proper treatment and support that was provided to them after everything they've gone through. So obviously, our movie, we have to establish everything these people go through, Keith and everyone else. But then I think where the real heart and soul of the movie is that they're just, for years, decades, centuries, wasn't, the proper sort of response to that. And for the longest time, we actually called the movie Coffee and Donuts. And then about a couple months ago, it became time to okay, are we really going to call it that? And I think, the way that people watch movies now, they discover them on platforms. And I think, you know, putting, we just decided to go with something that was a little more obvious of what the movie was. And for me, I'm looking at it right now. The folder on my computer is still called Coffee and Donuts. It'll always be called that for me. But um, you know, so yeah, I think that's and the um, those conversations were so educational for me because I just never thought about it or knew that the systemic side of this, that most of these, if not every one of the characters in our movie, came from it in their families, had a father who was a firefighter, a mother who was a EMT or whatever it might be. And so what they saw growing up was that you bottled it up. You didn't bring it home. So many of the people in our movie are veterans. They were taught the same thing. Don't bring this home. Keep this here. Keep this inside of you. So it's not just that they weren't given, actual therapy or, other forms of, ways of dealing with mental health. They were given the worst advice possible, which is to bottle it up. Don't share it. Don't. I mean, and that's really what our movie is about. And I think that's going to be the real education for people is because I don't think any of us have any idea, how that has all played out over the years. And it's like, if you really think about it, it's like these are, you know, Eric and Keith, you guys are our heroes. Like our country loves our first responders, and this is how our country's treated you, like by telling you to bury everything you see on a daily basis inside of you. Like that is a great American tragedy, in my opinion. And if we can have any kind of impact in breaking that down and changing that, then we will have done our job with this movie. And my favorite thing about this movie is that, as powerful it is, as sad as it is, it has a happy ending. And I say that in kind of a Hollywood way, but what it really does is it shows you how Keith, how a lot of these other characters in the movie are dealing with it now, what they've learned, and they're different for everyone. Some people have, meditation or, life coaching or, my favorite stuff in the movie is, a farm that a former firefighter opened where he just invites first responders to come out and be with animals. And it's like, I never thought of that as a form of therapy, but we got to witness it. We saw Keith bring his family out there. We saw Brian Harkins, another one of our characters, bring his family out there. And you could see just the stress falling off their face. And I think hopefully, people who watch our movie can get through the heavy first act where you hear all of the stories that they've gone through, and then get to that third act where you see now how they're dealing with it and finding just the tip of the iceberg of finding ways to cope,
Yeah, you bring up a good point when it comes to the culture. It's internal, obviously. Keith can attest, just by the example you gave, that you know anybody got anything to say, and you can tell when those questions are asked, they don't want an answer. They don't. They're hoping you're going to just press on and move on. And the moment somebody does chime up, now they're going to either have to worry about like, oh, you pussy, somebody's going to make fun of you at work if they hear it, and then two, you're going to get passed off. Hey, here's your resources, and they're going to hand you a pamphlet, and that's about as cold and as heartless as it's going to get, and you're not going to get much more. Scott, what you did for Keith is more than I've seen a lot of people do. Just reaching out and asking him how he's doing, which means a lot to guys like us, especially people that are outside of our fishbowl. So the other side of the house that I don't know if you're aware of, maybe you guys kind of discovered this as you were going through, but you get the external flack as well, where the public will say stuff like, well, you know what you signed up for. You volunteered for that. You should be used to that. And I can tell you right now, I think I actually got this from Keith, is, yeah, I signed up for it, but I had no idea. Like, you can't, I came in, I wanted to save people, but nobody prepared me for the shit that I was going to see throughout my career. Nobody prepared me for I have to see a dead baby. Now I got to go be nice to a homeless person who's abusing the system to get a free ambulance ride to the hospital. And then I got to pretend to be nice. So those are the cultural shocks that I think a lot of the public doesn't get to see. And it is really cool, Corey, when I see, and Scott, when I see guys like you that have such a strong influence on what American movie culture, TV culture, whatever you want to call it, Hollywood, basically. You guys come out and you put yourself into our shoes, and you do it uninterrupted from what I'm understanding. You guys, this is not scripted. You guys are telling real stories.